American president talking up capitalism as a wall came down. 21 years later, did the world just witness the reverse? Welcome, everyone. I'm Stuart Varney in for Neil Cavuto. This is Your World. President Obama telling the world today, we want China to succeed and prosper, and we are not interested in containing that process. Don't get the Donald started. You've heard him say we're losing our country before, but wait until you hear him now. Donald Trump joins me on the phone. Donald, what do you make of the president's statement on China today?
Well, I think it's absolutely terrible, Stuart. It's just unbelievable, unthinkable. Can you imagine Ronald Reagan making that statement? Can you imagine almost any president making that statement? China is succeeding. They're rebuilding their country off our money. I mean, we're making so many products in China, paying China so much money for those products that you go to these Chinese cities, they're rebuilding cities, and they're building new cities that are bigger than any of our cities. It's absolutely insane to have made that statement.
Hoping to carve out a share of the biggest economic boom on the planet, the emerging middle class in China. Look at it this way. There are not just more households with TVs here than in America. There are 255 million more. More cars were sold here, 3 million more last year than in the United States. And as we have said, we came here with questions about what this means for America, for American jobs, and for the iconic American companies hoping to get their piece of the action in this culture so far away.
They want a job. They want jobs. 9.5% unemployment is a very tough screen to get through with any other message. What we want to say to the American people is what Mr. Hoyer was saying. We want them to make it in America, to manufacture in our country so that their families can make it in America.
Another city, another big American brand has spent 20 years working the country, and now McDonald's opens a new location every other day. By the way, McDonald's only uses food grown by Chinese farmers. And the workers, also Chinese, 66,000 of them, whose wages are much lower than in the U.S., but competitive for China. So the venture doesn't create so many American jobs, but if it works, McDonald's will deliver the Mount Everest of consumers to its American shareholders. And what about that great success story, General Motors, which has to comply with government rules? They sold a record 2 million cars here last year, but 95% of them entirely made in China with Chinese workers. And profits shared with the Chinese government.
Last year, we told GM's management and workers that if they made the tough decisions necessary to make themselves more competitive in the 21st century, decisions requiring real leadership, fresh thinking, and also some shared sacrifice, then we would stand by them. And because they did, the American auto industry, an industry that's been the proud symbol of America's manufacturing might for a century, an industry that helped to build our middle class, is once again on the rise.
And what about that great success story, General Motors, which has to comply with government rules? They sold a record 2 million cars here last year, but 95% of them entirely made in China with Chinese workers. And profits shared with the Chinese government. General Motors celebrated its return to Wall Street after a life support of bankruptcy and government bailouts. As we saw, the recovery was fueled in part by sales in China, 30% of total profits, and investors are seeing something they like. Chris Bury on the Investor Stampede.
Today, the president took a victory lap.
There were plenty of doubters and naysayers who said it couldn't be done.
But from the very moment GM's new boss rang the opening bell to the sound of a revving engine, his company's stock took off like a Camaro.
It looked like the company was busted, and now it's back.
Now GM is no longer government motors, the Treasury share shrinking from 61% to 33%. And that $50 billion loan from taxpayers, nearly half is paid back. The rest to come as more stock is sold.
I think General Motors owes a great debt of gratitude, and I know the employees feel that way, to the American taxpayer.
GM is on a roll. Its new electric Volt just named Motor Trend's Car of the Year. Overall, sales are so strong, GM is raising prices, making money for the first time in 6 years. The remarkable turnaround comes less than 2 years after the government saved a broke and bloated GM and Chrysler from certain collapse.
we're able to save the American auto industry, save millions of jobs, and really create the groundwork for a rebirth of the American auto industry.
The new GM is a shadow of the old. Instead of 8 brands, only 4. Chevrolet, Cadillac, Buick, and GMC. It slashed payroll in half, shutting more than a dozen factories and closing more than 1,000 dealerships. Now a leaner, greener GM is back on the path to prosperity, and American taxpayers can take a bow. Chris Bury, ABC News, Chicago.
At least one patron, himself a former GM employee, is eager for the opportunity to own stock in the automaker.
I think it's a good investment. I think General Motors is on the mends, and they will be around for another good couple hundred years. I won't be there, but they will.
But just across the room, resentment remains about the government's rescue of GM.
I'm a Darwinist when it comes to this. I believe in that we should be allowed to fail and fall down on our feet, and the government shouldn't generally prop us up.
But not everyone is a fan of the timing of the stock sale. Consumer groups wrote to President Barack Obama asking the sale be delayed.
The whole purpose of the bailout of the auto industry, particularly General Motors, was to save jobs in this industry in the United States. And there are no indications here that this is going to save jobs in the United States. General Motors is soliciting a lot of foreign buyers. They're very intertwined with the Chinese at this point.
Could you beat Barack Obama?
I believe so.
Black Friday is the traditional start to the holiday shopping season, a hugely important period in helping to jumpstart the economy.
Retail and restaurants represent 1 in 5 jobs in America. So if we do well, if we grow, then we're going to be the ones that are going to start to lead us out of into a recovery and out of the difficulty that we've had in terms of job hiring, unemployment, and all of those challenging issues that relate to that.
Across the nation, shoppers poured into stores in the wee hours of the morning looking for bargains and preferring to save a little cash over a little sleep.
It's mad shopping in the middle of the night.
I think it's worth it. My family doesn't think it's worth it. They're like, you should stay home.
Whether it was clothes, gadgets, or toys, shoppers were out in force, hoping to grab the best deals on must-have items.
I want the sales. The sales are what makes the day.
I'm content. You know, for the money that I'm spending right now, I'm kind of impressed, so it's good. It's good.
Electronics are expected to be big sellers this year, with retailers like Best Buy gearing up for bargain hunters to file in until the end of the year.
If you go through the store, every area's got something hot. Gaming's got motion gaming. We've got really hot smartphones that people are into. Tablets are big. In television, flat panel's been out for a while, but LED television, internet-connected television, internet-connected Blu-ray players, LED televisions are all at the top of that food chain.
In recent decades, China has seen unparalleled economic growth, and this country's environment has faced an unprecedented assault. Rivers, which can only be described as toxic, are everywhere to be seen. If you choose a random city or town here and go looking for a waterway, you'll be very lucky if it's fit for any human use. We saw people growing vegetables next to a river which has turned black. They're either oblivious to the state of this water, are ignoring the dangers of using it, or have no other choice. Then there's the air quality. China's air pollution problem is enormous. The impact of coal-fired power stations and heavy industry is felt right across the country. And when it comes to industrial pollution of all types, factory employees are at the front line. Mercury, lead, chromium and other poisons from this e-waste leach into the groundwater. China is sacrificing its own environment at both ends of the production life of these computers. In this way, it's effectively subsidising other countries. People all over the world are getting cheap electrical goods, in part because China is trashing its air, its earth and its waterways.
So what are you going to do about this? Obviously, we've got a trade problem with China, but we've got news today that GE is getting a $2 billion investment out of China, and news also today that Saginaw, Michigan is now, China is the #1 employer in Saginaw, Michigan.
Sure, that's a tiny little place that is wonderful, but they're using that just to show how nice they are, when in fact they're not looking for our good, and they shouldn't be. They should be looking for their good.
What do we do about
they have
it?
people that are very, very smart. What I would do, you have such a huge deficit with a trade deficit with China. Their currency is artificially low, and see, we've fallen into the Chinese trap. We're now destroying the dollar in order to try and compete with them. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be keeping the dollar strong and stable, and we should tax Chinese products. And the people that talk about free trade, we don't have free. I'm a big free trade believer, by the way, but we don't have free trade with China. China is literally going to destroy this country. If we don't get smart quickly, China will destroy our country.
Now,
and they'll do it with a smile, and our people have no idea what's happening.